Lariat.
Yes.
Let's get into some Abstractus. So
Awesome.
Lariat, each week, or most weeks, brings us a segment called Abstractus. Lariat loves abstract games, and he is going to talk to you guys about abstract games in today's gaming world. I mean,
Sometimes this one's more.
I just think abstract games are interesting to talk about when all these other games exist, because people still love them. They're still striking a chord. That's what I mean by in today's gaming world.
Gotcha. Yeah.
Know what I mean?
Yes, exactly.
Oh, I said it. Okay, so Larry, take us through Senet. Tell me about this game because I want to know.
All right, so this game is Senet or Senet. There's a couple of, just depending upon how you translate
Yeah.
that. It is a very, very old game. It is. Some people believe it is one of the first board games. So it is
Really?
Prehistoric first dynasty of Egypt. So we're talking Circera 3100 BC, 3500 BC is when they believe the first boards were put together. They found in tombs.
Okay.
So it is believed to be a big forerunner of backgammon. It's a race game. And just to brief people on it, it's 30 squares arranged in 3 rows of 10. And by the time of the New Kingdom of Egypt, viewed as sort of a metaphor for the journey of the dead. So it was pretty important to them, in their religion.
Yeah.
So you see these wonderfully ornate boards in the tombs of kings, and they're ivory and bone and wood that they wouldn't have had. They carried this stuff in, and they really spent a lot of time on this, building this game. So it uses 4, but they're not really sure. They found a couple of games that have actual knuckle bone, like what we would consider a D6, a 6-sided die. But they mostly found they're 2-sided dice. They're a piece of a stick, and it's flattened on one side. And it's about 3/4 of the circumference of the circle as it remains. So you have a pretty good chance of it rolling with the flat side up, but there's also some possibility of that flat side going down. And the fact that you're rolling dice to move, they considered it the luck element, the deterministic nature of it as part of their religion. If you were good at Senet, you were favored by the gods because you were just destined to make this journey. It's a symbolic journey into the land of the dead to do what they do at the end of their afterlife. Their hearts were weighed against a feather by Thoth, and if they had enough, if their heart was good enough, they got to go to a heaven. So anyway, this is the first board game I made myself. I made a nice cedar board for Senet in high school for a project. We were doing some Egyptian history stuff, and I believe it was a reading class, an English class, but I built the board. It was really cool. It sat on tables and shelves, looking good for a long time. And I actually, one day was like, I wanted to play this. So to me, this game is interesting in a lot of the same ways that Nefertalf is, because we don't know exactly what the rules were.
Yeah.
We have pieces, and we have board, and we have some images in hieroglyphics of people playing it. So we know that these sticks were rolled to determine movement, but the boards are different. In the first dynasty ones, there's 5 to 6 pawns per player, and then later they start adding 7, 8, 10 pawns per player, and there's only 30 spaces, so the board could get filled up really quickly. But my interest in it was basically there's 2 big rule sets out there from which people derive their rules to play Senet. That people still play this, and there's like apps. I have an app on my Kindle of Senet, but it was really interesting because one person, his name is Kindle, he wrote this book from more of a historical context. He used context clues where they talked about this game in the actual Egyptian literature and stuff like that, and it's in a book called Passing Through the Netherworld, playing the game of Senet. So his rules are
Have you read this book?
No.
Oh, okay.
No. His rules are more of a reconstruction of this allegorical game that they would have played symbolically.
Gotcha.
And then R.C. Bell, this is he's pretty instrumental in bringing a lot of weird, strange, far-off land board games to England, where he was from, and teaching people the rules and introducing them to these games.
Okay.
So whether or not, his game is called the Board Game Book, and it's like 85 of these sorts of games and variants.
So his wasn't particularly about this one thing, but it was just included in there.
Yeah, well, he played.
Was it the biggest, most notable game in that book, or are there?
Oh, no. It's all classic games. I believe it would be comparable to like Hoyle's book,
Oh, okay, gotcha.
Card and game book. Lots of rules just collected for people to reference on rainy days or whenever.
Huh.
So his is meant to be more played like a backgammon variant, right? What really interests me is that games are there's something people do for fun. And then there's games that people really invest themselves in. Mm-hmm. And like you can say, oh, well, my dad watches football and he gets really angry when his team doesn't do good. But like if you think about stuff like the Mayan ball game, people lost and then they got their heads cut off. You know what I mean? The game was allegorical in the same way that Senet was, but it had potentially dire consequences for the losers. Games throughout history have always been invested with this, you know what I mean? Even like the title of the Game of Thrones. It is a game to these people in a way, but they're using human lives.
Yeah.
So that's one of the really interesting things about games to me is that they can be fun and lighthearted and just a way to pass some time, or they could be literal matters of life and death. And this one wasn't so much. I don't think Senet was a game you played and then died, but if you weren't good at it or if you didn't have good luck, you were considered sort of frowned upon, but the gods weren't on your side. You know what I mean? So could have implications if you.
So did everybody have to try and play?
We have so little record. I think it was more of a courtly thing. I imagine the lower classes played. All the boards you hear about are from royal tombs.
First instance of weighted dice.
Right? They figured out how to shave the side to make it a little easier to roll. I don't know. You get into thinking about games in this context, like we only see the royal ones, like the ones that are in tombs. That were, But maybe there was common versions, and maybe their play was more like R.C. Bell's rules. I just find it all very interesting, and I love the game. It's quite fun.
So tell us about the actual game and how it plays.
So it's I said earlier it's 3 rows of 10 squares, and they're typically ordered from top left would be one, across, and down. So
left to right, up to top to bottom,
left to right, and then down one row, and then right to left,
so like
and then down one
snake pattern.
Yes, an S, a reverse S. And the last 5, if you order them in that way, 25 through 30, have symbols on them on all the boards. 25 has an Ankh, and then the next one is it varies a little, but it's that pit. It's like a bad place. This is the waters. Like you don't want to be there.
Okay.
And then the next 3 are labeled 3, 2, and 1, and you have to roll those numbers to get off in most variations. So basically you start out, Kendall's rules, he plays with 7 pawns, and you start with all the pawns on the board and alternating. So like mine would be on 1, yours would be on 2, and then you're rolling these dice, and for every side that comes up, you move 1 unless there are none of them up, and that would be 5. So there's 4 dice and 5 potential rolls.
Okay.
So you would take turns moving. His has less fun because there's no... If you can't make a move, for example, if someone else's piece there, you can't make the move.
Oh, really? Okay.
So it's kind of... It's not as fun to play.
Yeah.
But basically...
But it's the more historical...
Well, and see, even that, he filled in a lot of the blanks because we have so little on this game. We have the board, and that's pretty much it. And they're a great variance of what the boards are.
Yeah, but he was really interested in this game.
Yes.
The other guy was really interested in games.
In playing game, yeah, in playing it. So this game basically is a race game, but you could definitely get stymied a lot just by luck in general, not necessarily by the other player. Like I said, the 25 has an Ankh on it, and that's the square of rebirth. If you make one of the rolls of 5, I believe, you can jump there. And then the last 3, you have to roll a 3 to get off of square 27, a 2 to get off of 28.
So is this like having to go from one place and get all of your people like home almost?
Yes, exactly.
So, this is almost like a ancient Parcheesi?
Yeah, it's a lot more... People compare it to backgammon, like a forerunner of modern backgammon.
Okay.
Especially the way R.C. Bell has it. In backgammon, you bear off to win. You have to bear your pieces off, and in a lot of variants, you have to bear on too. So you're bringing your pieces onto the board, and then bringing them off.
Kind of interesting.
Yeah. So in R.C. Bell's version, you play with 10 pawns each, but you have to bear them on. So the board starts empty.
Okay.
You roll, you place 1. And
can you like jump though?
In his version, there is that. And if you hit a piece and they are past a certain point, I believe it's the midpoint, they go back to 1 or back to the earliest available space. If they're beyond that, I believe they go to the square of rebirth.
Okay.
So you can jump kind of ahead, and you could actually knock yourself out to throw yourself ahead. So it's a lot more fun to play. I haven't played much with 10 pawns. I usually play with 5 pawns because I play with the kids a lot. But they find it pretty entertaining, and there's a really cool article on Board Game Geek about a guy who made a Senet board, and then he tried to show his son, and he had no interest in it. So then the guy goes back kind of to the drawing board, takes the rules that he has for Senet, and he themes it to where it makes sense, and it fits. So he makes 1 team penguins and 1 team polar bears, and then, these polar bears are trying to jump on the ice squares back to their home. but some of them are slippery, so one can't. He fit everything into the theme, and then his son just got it. You know,
that's cool.
Yeah, and
took some of the abstraction out of it.
And put a little theme to it. But I love games like this because they're in all games, really. Just like we were talking about earlier, viticulture. This guy had a problem with that. I mean, yeah, there's a problem. Could be better. Yeah, it could be better. Is that a perfect solution? Maybe, maybe not. If you don't like something in a game, it is no business of anybody else what you do. If you don't like some particular card in something, throw it away.
Yeah.
Or these are for fun, you know?
I was recently listening to a podcast where they were talking about how they hate house ruling games. They think the rules in the game should be perfect, and I just don't get that thinking. Why can't you take a game that someone has made, a game that fits your taste 95%, and go, I'm going to change up this other 5%?
Yeah. There's scenarios wherein it's important to have a standardized set of rules in tournaments and international sort of settings. And abstracts particularly are usually pretty tight on it, but I think you'll find there's also abstracts that have the widest number of variations within a small set because people house rule and because people or culture or a country or wherever this game traveled to don't like some aspect of it, so they change it. And then it becomes its own thing.
That's like going back to like almost being a kid-like, which is so much fun. Like, we would take any game we were playing and just make up whatever rule we wanted to. We would take our Legos and our Army Men and our Monster in My Pockets and make up a game. You know what I mean?
And it was fun. It didn't matter. So this game and having it around, having my kids play it with me, I love Egypt and Egyptian history, so it has that going for me. The fact that there's no real rules that you can go back to and say, no, that's not right. You can't do that.
Yeah.
As long as it's done equally by both players, there's no real wrong way.
It's so cool that you were building game boards when you were that age. I mean, what age were you? We've known each other since I was 15 and you were 14, or maybe 16 and 15.
I want to say I made it when I was 16 or 17.
Okay.
But I'd been doing stuff like that for a while.
I feel like I remember it.
Yeah, every once in a while, if you know me, every once in a while, you'll see something that I made. Like,
oh yeah,
my mom kept forever. I did a project on Dracula, and we had to make a box, and it was like a shoe box, and it has to have 5 things in it from the book. Well, mine was so good, the teacher was like, I want to keep yours to use as examples. Like, I made a little wooden box filled with earth, and that was the consecrated earth, and I made a wooden stake and a wooden crucifix and garlic beads and holy water vial, I think was the 5th one. But I've always been a little bit crafty, but this was my first game that I remember making myself and wondering, who was the first person to play this?
Yeah.
Like, it connects you to the past. And all games, abstract games in particular, except for, like, a lot of Gamic games are new and have very different ideas, but most abstract games draw on some seminal game, chess or checkers or Mancala counting games or dice, knucklebones, some sort of rolling. I just love them for this kind of reason. They are so broad and so available. You don't need anything to play this but paper, pencil, and maybe some counters of some kind.
It's true. Man, you're the guy that, like, I feel like you could really get into making some, like, sick-looking print-and-play games where you're using that, like, linen finish for your cards, that paper, like the really high paper where you're cutting out the corners and, like,
making them really
doing the glue thing, like rolling them. And you've done some of that, actually.
Yeah, a little bit.
And, like, making your 1066, right?
Yeah.
1066
I
board.
posted pictures of that one on Facebook, and it
and your Nefertofel board recently, like.
Yeah, that's true too.
And
I'll go home and I'll post pictures of my Senet board.
And your chess table that you have. Like,
it's just a.
You're awesome.
I built that table in shop, but it became a chess table.
Yeah, that's cool, man.
Yeah,
it's really cool. I wish I was that crafty sometimes.
Well,
I made a Bomb Squad print and play that was pretty nifty.
That was a good one.
Those chits.
The perfect.
Like, just get like one of those pieces of like what is that?
It's just board foam board, not foam board,
but like really thin.
Yeah,
like,
it's not even foam board. It
almost looks like a piece of construction paper, but made out of foam.
Yeah, like an 1/8 inch thick.
Yeah. And like
available in all kinds of colors and
glued the chit, squares to that. Man, it works so good as chits.
They were perfect. I think that will be the method if I have any games need chits.
Yeah, for sure. So anyway, Senet. Anything else about Senet?
No, just check out our Facebook page and I'll post some pictures up and y'all can get a little bit more clear idea.
How could people check this out? Where are the rules most widely available? Would you say the iPad or like an app would be the quickest, easiest way for them to go check it out?
Probably, yeah. But just typing in Senet is going to bring you up a lot of. Board Game Geek has a page about it with that article I was talking about and other people's rethemings and ideas about what the rules are. I mean, just games like this spark so much discussion because of what they are.
Are the RC rules, the ones you say are the more fun rules, are they the most used, like in the apps and stuff like that?
You know, I'd have to look
Or
at
do the apps even like differentiate, like these are the rules we used?
I think that the app I have is sort of a proprietary set of rules that may be popular in Egypt.
Gotcha.
Because some of the text in the game is in a, I'm not going to speculate. It's some sort of Arabic script. I can't read it.
Okay.
But I think that's where that app came from, is someone in that country actually playing that game, which
Okay.
I guess they still play there like regularly. So, yeah, this is like, it's a really interesting facet of games.
Cool. So that is Senet on Abstractus with Lariat Gartman.
Mm-hmm.